Okay, can you all see a picture of our founder, Mr. Hubbard? Okay, great. So I thought it best to start with the beginning, which is the founder of Scientology, Mr. L. Ron Hubbard. He actually did not start out to create a religion or to even study religion. His initial pursuit was to find out more about man. He believed that in order to know life, one must live life. And so he spent most of his life traveling around the world and studying different types of people from all walks of life, and also studying different religions. He also was an avid writer. I believe the last time I checked, he was the most prolific writer, the second most prolific writer in the United States. He didn't just write science fiction, although that is what he's most well known for in the fiction world. He wrote many other genres and under many pen names. When he was doing all of this traveling and learning more about different cultures and everything else, he was basically led by some basic questions. He wanted to know, why do people behave like they do? Why do some people respond faster or better than others to different therapies and or medical treatment? And if it was possible to actually truly understand oneself or others. All of this journey led him to what he ends up writing in Dianetics, The Modern Guide to Mental Health, which was the first book that he published in 1950. Now, this book is not only a book about the mind, it's also a book about how you can fix the things about your mind that are causing you difficulties in your current life. He found that an individual was basically multiple different things. Besides a body, there was a mind that stored all of the memories of the person that they'd ever experienced, and that there were two types of, or two parts, the mind. One he called the analytical mind, and that's what everybody uses when they're problem solving and figure things out. And then the other he called the reactive mind, and this is where all of the moments of pain and unconsciousness and extreme misemotion would get stored. And the reactive mind was basically a stimulus response type mechanism. So if you were faced with something in the present that kind of subconsciously reminded you of a time when you were harmed in the past, then you could get feelings or thoughts that occurred back then in present time. Maybe you've experienced some time where you were struggling with something and you kept getting this overwhelming idea that you couldn't figure it out or that you couldn't handle it. Maybe that wasn't coming from your current situation. It could have been coming from some other time in your past. And now it's convincing you yet again that you can't solve this particular problem. And so that's what he found in Dianetics, and he writes all about it, how to fix it, etc. And it was then the application of what he writes in Dianetics when Scientology was born, because he realized as he was providing this assistance to people and helping them recover these memories and work through these memories so that they no longer affected them in the present, he realized that there was some other thing that he had not taken into account. It wasn't the body and it wasn't the mind, but there was something else that was actually looking at these memories and making decisions about these memories. And that is what he decided was going to be basically the spirit, the thetan. He called it a thetan, which comes from the Greek symbol theta, which means thought or spirit. He defines it as basically pure energy, the life force of the individual. And so we see it illustrated like this so that we can understand the relationships. So all of these are the person. You have your body, you have your mind, and then you have you, your individuality, your life force, the things that make you you, and your energy. And so in Dianetics and Scientology, we used both techniques. Scientology became a more streamlined way of specifically addressing you, the spirit, and helping you, the spirit, address your mind and your body for the better. so that you could do what you wanted in life, you could accomplish what you wanted in life, and you could find out who you truly were. And so thus is the purpose of Scientology, is to make us more aware of our own spirituality and to help us increase our ability as a spiritual being to deal with life and others, etc. Now, part of this presentation is just a 4-minute video that I wanted to show you, and I'm hoping that it comes through okay and not too slow so that you can at least understand it. But I think that it does in 4 minutes what might take me about 30 minutes to explain. So we're going to try to watch this real quick.
Scientology is the science of knowing how to know answers. It is an organized system of axioms and processes which resolve the problems of existence. A Scientologist is a specialist in spiritual and human affairs. Scientology is organized from the viewpoint of the spirit. It contains a precise and usable definition of the spirit, and charts and studies, and is capable of changing the behavior of the spirit. Scientology is formed in the tradition of 10,000 years of religious philosophy and considers itself a culmination of the searches which began with the Veda, the Tao, Buddhism, and other religions. Scientology is a Gnostic faith in that it knows it knows. This is its distinguishing characteristic from most of its predecessors. Scientology can demonstrate for the individual
increase the volume on the video.
Rules set for man by all religions, which are wisdom, good health, and immortality. By spiritual means, but means which are as precise as mathematics, a host of the bad conditions of life may be remedied in Scientology. Illness and malfunction can be divided into two general classes. First, those resulting from the operation of the spirit directly upon the communication networks of life or the body, and those occasioned by the disruption of structure through purely physical causes. Unhappiness, inability to heal, and psychosomatic illness, which includes some 70% of the illnesses of man, are best healed by immediate address of the human spirit. Illness caused by recognizable bacteria and injury and accident are best treated by physical means, and these fall distinctly into the field of medicine and are not the province of Scientology. Except that accidents and illness and bacterial infection are predetermined in almost all cases by spiritual malfunction and unrest. And conditions and accidents are definitely prolonged by any spiritual malfunction. Thus, we have the field of medicine addressing the immediate injury. Such surgical matters as birth and acute infection, and such things as contusions and abrasions resulting from accidents, as well as the administration of drugs and antibiotics to prevent the demise of the patient in a crisis. This is the role of medicine. Where predisposition to disease or injury exists, or where disease or injury is being prolonged, or where where unhappiness and worry causes mental or physical upset, or where we desire to better and improve communications or social relationships. We are dealing, if we are efficient, in the realm of Scientology.
And also this picture right here, I wanted to explain real quick. This is what it looks like when you're receiving auditing, which in Scientology, auditing is our method of counseling. And the person that is sitting at the desk looking at what we call an e-meter. This was the only thing that Mr. Hubbard actually invented, was it, and basically it's tracking the energy flow through your body. So the person receiving the auditing is holding some cans, and the meter that she is looking at is watching on a dial the rises and falls that occur when certain questions are asked, and the person looks in their memory to find an incident. And the way that it moves tells the auditor whether or not that is an incident that has what we call charge, or that has a reaction for the person. And so when you find a memory that has a reaction, then the auditor then asks a series of questions, which gets the person to look at that incident more thoroughly, over and over, recalling more and more information about it. And in that way, the person now takes that memory, which once was in the reactive mind, and by looking at it and evaluating it, can now come to their own present conclusions about it and remove it from the reactive mind, and it can no longer subconsciously affect the individual. And that's the purpose of auditing, is to rid those moments from the past affecting the person in the future.
Before you, oh, okay, you're not gonna, they were saying they were having trouble hearing the video. So,
okay.
But you're not showing any more of the video?
Nope.
Okay.
No, that was the end. That was the end. Well, I hope that you could at least understand the most important parts. There's a big misconception about Scientology that we don't believe in medicine or doctors or what have you, and that's not true. That video illustrated the difference between the two. Scientology is interested in the ailments that individuals have, but not from the perspective of taking the place of a doctor. Scientology is trying to address you as a spiritual being and how you were affected by illnesses, or how you were affected by trauma, etc. Not to actually physically heal, but to heal the spirit that was damaged or affected by things that occur in the realm of medicine. So we do still see doctors. Health is important to us. We want our bodies to be strong and capable. And then the other ways in Scientology that we apply our religion, since this is a practical application religion, we just discussed auditing. And an auditor means someone who just listens. Our auditors never make suggestions to the person or anything like that, or tell them what's wrong with them. They only ask questions, listen to what is said, and acknowledge that, and then they're trained to know what kind of questions to ask to help the person through these incidents. Then there are assists. Assists are basically things that we do with someone to help get our spiritual self in communication with our body, or we help another one do that. So after an accident, there would be an assist to help the person to more recall what happened during the accident and try to handle that accident right then, rather than letting it become something that acts upon them in the future. Those are assists. There's also assists to help someone get more in tune with their present environment. So if you have somebody who's hysterical about something, there are easy assists that you can do to reorient them into the actual present and get them out of their hysteria, so that they realize that what they're upset about is not what's going on right in front of them. We call these assists, and anyone can learn to do them, and they can be delivered on anyone. You don't have to be a Scientologist to receive an assist. Then we have basic training that we do. Life improvement courses are the most basic of the courses, and these revolve around human relations, communication. There's courses on how to handle your finances, how to handle children, how to have a good marriage. These are all basic courses that help people understand themselves, others, and the interaction between people so that they can succeed better in those areas of their life. Then there's technical training, and that's when someone is actually training to become an auditor so that they can help other people. And then we also have Sunday services, and typically our Sunday services are kind of like other services in that in a Protestant church, for example, a minister might take some passages from the Bible and apply them, or get the congregation to see how they could be applied to something in the present. So in Scientology, we basically do the same things at our services. We take something from Scientology technology and then talk about how we can better use that to handle something that's happening in the here and the now. Then we have extension courses. Extension courses are courses that you do at home. And during the shutdown, this is what everyone did. If they wanted to do a course, they did extension courses. And they're on the basic books of Scientology. So any book on Scientology that you buy, whether it be like, there's a book called The Problems of Work or The Fundamentals of Life. These come with packs that guide you through the book and have lessons that you do, and then you email them into a supervisor. The supervisor makes sure you got it all, and you just keep moving forward. And it takes you all the way through the book so that you grasp all the concepts that are in that material. And then we have the volunteer minister training, which can both be done in the church, and they can also be done free of charge on the volunteer minister's website. And these are like shorter versions of the life improvement courses. So again, they're focused around the normal areas in which people have difficulties in or would want to improve their ability to handle. Also in the video, you saw one of these symbols, not the cross, but the other symbol. And so I thought I should explain what they are. Well, our cross, what is different about our cross is that it's an 8-pointed cross, and that is to represent the 8 dynamics of Scientology. One of the things that our founder, L. Ron Hubbard, discovered was that all men, all people, were striving to survive in different areas of life. And he decided that he had found 8 that seemed to be common with all peoples. And we call those the dynamics. And I'm going to cover those next. But the next thing is our symbol, and that's our Scientology symbol, or you might refer to it as a logo. The S simply stands for Scientology. And then we have the 2 triangles. Each of these triangles are concepts in Scientology that are pretty much fundamental with almost everything that we learn in Scientology. One of the triangles is what we call the ARC triangle, and the other is the KRC triangle. And I've illustrated them here so that you can see what those letters stand for. So ARC is affinity, reality, and communication. And KRC is knowledge, responsibility, and control. So one of the first things that we learn in handling others and in handling our own responsibilities, these tools are extremely helpful. So the ARC triangle, well, first, why they're a triangle is because if you raise any one of these, of the 3, it will automatically raise the other points on the triangle. So ARC, affinity, reality, and communication, means that anytime you have, say you have an argument with someone, and it's because the 2 of you cannot see eye to eye on something. So you have a break in reality. You each have a different reality. So in Scientology, we learn that if we can't seem to come to an agreement, then we have 2 other points of this triangle that we can strengthen, which will bring about a higher level of reality. So if we can't agree, we start communicating. And the more we communicate and communicate, the more likely that we'll get to a resolution, or at least an agreement to accept one another's reality. Or we can also just increase our affinity. So if this is with your spouse, I'm sure you've been in situations with your spouse that seemed like they were just terrible, but then all of a sudden you just decided, you know what, I really love this person and I just don't care. Well, you chose to raise your affinity. You went back to remembering how you felt about the person, how much you cared for the person, and that dissolved the problem that you were having, whether it be communication or reality. And the same is true for knowledge, responsibility, and control. If you're having an impossible time controlling something, then we know we have to do one of two things. We either have to A, take more responsibility to increase our control, or B, we have to increase our knowledge on the subject that we're having difficulty controlling. But handling it by either of those two other points on the triangle will then lead to us being more capable of controlling whatever it is that we're trying to control. So under the dynamics, which are important because this is a center concept of Scientology, in that we are all striving to achieve a balanced and fulfilling life across these 8 dynamics. And so the first dynamic, and I use some of my own personal pictures to illustrate these. So the first dynamic is self. This is my youngest, my baby, when she got her bachelor's degree. But your first dynamic is your urge toward surviving as oneself, to be an individual. This would also include everything personal to you. So it would include your body, your health, the things that really are just you. And the second dynamic, this is my family, is the family dynamic. So this includes sex and the act of being with someone else intimately as husband and wife, and also can include raising children if you choose to have children in your life. You can tell we had a lot in our lives. The third dynamic is the groups dynamic, and this is how we all like to survive through and be a part of groups. And there's lots of different groups. So some people may have a very active third dynamic because you may be involved in, 10 or 20 different groups when you talk about extended family, work, church, social clubs, sports, school, etc. And then we have the fourth dynamic, and this you could call the mankind dynamic. This is taking account everyone around us, all people of all walks of life, of all religions, everyone. Anything that applies to that would be a fourth dynamic activity. So if you're working to help those around you, if you're working to, change global warming, you're working on a fourth dynamic activity, things that would benefit all mankind. Then the fifth dynamic is our urge to survive through other life forms. So this can be pets, it can be gardening, it can be environmental activism, anything that deals with the other forms of life around us. The sixth dynamic is what we call the mess dynamic, mess being short for matter, energy, space, and time. So all those things which aren't living, but that exist in our universe, they're encompassed in the sixth dynamic. And you know how people like to, have their house the way they want it, or maybe it's somebody who has a penchant for cars, but we do have ways in which we interconnect with and want to live through things in the physical universe. And so those things are encompassed in the sixth dynamic. The seventh dynamic is you as a spiritual being. So this is your pursuit to know and understand yourself better as a spiritual being. And then we have the eighth dynamic, and this is our urge to survive through some ultimate reality, infinity, a supreme being, the creator, or God. And in Scientology, that's not defined for you, which is why in Scientology, you can also have people of other religions that also consider themselves Scientologists, because they can practice whichever means of the eighth dynamic is right for them. Because in Scientology, what is true for you is true for you. So if you happen to be, a Baptist and you're in Scientology, then your supreme being or your eighth dynamic would be God, and you would practice your relationship with God the way you do as a Baptist. And then we have the eight dynamics as we see them and what we're striving to do, starting with the first and working outward to expand ourselves across the dynamics, always trying to achieve what seems to be a balance for us, and also to improve each of our dynamics as we go through life. Now, how we help. We have the volunteer ministers active in disaster, and these are pictures from last year, the spring of 2019, when our volunteer ministers went to help after the Linwood tornadoes. And this is something that goes on around the globe. It's not just our local church. There's volunteer minister groups at every church around the globe, and they go to hurricanes, floods, you name it, to help in whatever way they can. And currently during the pandemic, our volunteer ministers have been helping in whatever ways we could find to help in the community. We've been delivering hot meals. We've been working at food distributions at all different kinds of churches. Whoever needs our help, we're there to help them get the needs to the people. Also in Scientology, we support campaigns that we feel are a betterment to the world and to all of mankind. And there are the three that we primarily support, which are the Drug Free World Foundation with their Truth About Drugs program, which are all information on the short and long-term effects of drugs and alcohol, and the Way to Happiness Foundation, which is a common sense guide for better living. And this book was actually written in the 80s by Mr. Hubbard because he saw a decline happening in morals. And he foretold that if this decline wasn't stopped, that extremely bad things would happen in the world. And so he wrote this book in an effort to communicate to the masses that we have to have at least some basic rules in which we deal with our fellow man and in lives so that we can get along better. And so that was the purpose of The Way to Happiness when it was originally written. And we try to use it in that same way by getting it out to people, especially to people who may be on the fence about what direction they should go in life. Lots of people have found that in reading the book and realizing that there's another path they can take, they might not decide to become a criminal. Or maybe they've only done a few things and this could help them find a path away from heading in the wrong direction. And so it is in that effort that we work to get it out. Then we have the United for Human Rights and Youth for Human Rights. And these are basically just educating people on the rights that were put into effect by the United Nations shortly after World War II. However, they have not been adopted around the globe yet, and including in our country. We have definitely taken on some of those rights and done our best to fulfill them in the United States, but there are a lot more rights in there that the United States still has not recognized. And so we work very hard to try to educate people on what those rights are so that not only they know them, but they can respect those rights with others, and also so that they know what they should be fighting for. And with all these programs, we don't just give out the materials. All of the materials and what are called educator kits are funded by the International Association of Scientologists, which is basically a group that was formed to bring together the donations of Scientologists around the world so that they could all be put to use in the areas where they were most needed. And so the educational kits are given out free of charge. They can be ordered on the website. They go to the person who requested them, and then it basically tells them how to deliver a class on any of these three campaigns so that they can use it in a youth group, they can use it at their church, they can use it wherever. These are non-Scientology materials. The training and everything is just designed to teach those particular concepts. And now I'm gonna get out of here. Okay, so I just realized I cannot see my clock, so I have no idea how much time that I've spoke. Okay, we're doing all right. I hope that I at least touched on enough stuff so that you guys have some great questions for me. Scientology is full of texts and lectures and everything, so it was hard to pick what things to cover, but I hope that I've touched enough bases that you at least have kind of an understanding what we do in Scientology and what we're about. And I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Go ahead, Alan.
Okay. And then, could you tell us about the church, the organizational structure? It doesn't sound like you have ministers, you have auditors. I assume those are the leaders of the church. How does it work organizationally, and where is the church in Kansas City?
Okay, sure. So there's a lot of different groups in Scientology. So the lowest group are called missions. Okay, and those are owned actually by individuals. So an individual Scientologist can open a mission, and they can deliver basic services like the extension courses on basic books, courses on life improvement courses. They can also deliver assists, and they can deliver basic auditing services. Then the next tier up are what we call our churches of Scientology, or we also refer to them as class 5 organizations. Okay, and those are our basic churches that are in different areas. So the church that we have here in Kansas City is that type of church. And so they can deliver all types of services, both auditing and training, up to what we call the state of clear. And the state of clear, you may have heard that before. It's covered in the book Dianetics that he originally wrote, and that means free from one's reactive mind. So when you get to the state of clear, you're no longer burdened by the things that were in your reactive mind. You've handled them all. You're conscious of them. They no longer have impact on you. Then we have the upper organizations or advanced organizations, and they're above the churches, and that's where you can receive services above the state of clear. And you can also train to audit yourself when you get to even higher levels, which I'm not there yet. I do not yet audit myself. But at some point, you end up learning how to audit yourself so that you can continue your search for the truth on your own. Now, as far as within a church, which I think is more what you would like to know. So we have executive directors. We have an entire executive committee, just like any other group would, that run the organization. Everyone that is an auditor has to first become a minister. So no one can become an auditor and deliver auditing services without first becoming doing the minister training and then becoming ordained as a minister. And the main reason for that is because when people are receiving auditing services, these are moments and things about their past that are extremely personal to them. It's similar to, well, you might liken it to a Catholic confessional. Like, you wouldn't just tell anybody your deepest, darkest fears and, this type of thing. But the only way to free yourself from those things is to be able to communicate it and get it out there in front of you. So that's why you must be a minister, so that everything that is ever said in an auditing session is priest-penitent privileged. So no one can ever know that. It's just between you, your auditor. Okay. Then we have a chaplain who is a minister that is not a full-time auditor. It's not their job to audit people. Their job is to basically do the same things that another minister would be as far as ministering. They deliver our Sunday services. Chaplains are also the person you can go to if you have an upset and you need assistance handling something. If there's disagreements between Scientologists, the chaplain would help them work it out, etc. We also have something that other religions may or may not have. I'm not sure. I haven't learned about all of them yet, but we have ethics officers. And so ethics officers are the part of our church that helps us when we need to solve something. Okay, that could be that we've realized we've done something wrong and it's harmed somebody, and we need help sorting out how we're going to make that right, or how we are going to become more responsible in a particular area, more ethical in a particular area. We can go and see an ethics officer, and they will help by providing us references and everything else and steps that we can take to change. Does that help?
And is there a church in Kansas City, and are people who are not in Scientology invited to participate or visit?
Yes. Yes, there's a church in Scientology, of Scientology in Kansas City, Missouri at 18th and Grand. It's our new building that we just have been in for a year now. Also, this thing that you should know about, most of the churches now all have what are called information centers. So anyone can come into the church, and the entire foyer area is everything that you could ever want to know about Scientology. in little stations where you can go sit down and watch videos and learn anything that you want to know at your own pace. You don't even have to have somebody with you. You can go to the receptionist and say, I just want to look around. I just want to learn some stuff. And she can give you a little self-guided tour thing. And then you can just go around and learn whatever it is you want to learn. And that's a newer thing that has only been over the last 5 or 6 years, though, being installed into churches so that anybody can come in and find out more about whatever they want to know about Scientology. And also it contains information on the campaigns that I talked about earlier too.
And then you mentioned,
also-
you mentioned that you have
Go ahead.
services. Are those services open to non-Scientology members? Okay.
Yes,
And when do they take place?
Sundays, I believe currently at 11. Lately, I haven't been to a Sunday service because I spend most of my weekends doing food distributions. And so I haven't missed them. But that's what they were before the shutdown. And so I'm assuming they resumed that schedule. During the shutdown, they were actually on Facebook Live.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Looks like we actually have quite a few questions in the chat. The first question is from Keith. Does Scientology have programs for children or teenagers, etc.?
Absolutely. Mm-hmm. Yes, so we have courses that are specifically designed for children. I should be clear that one of the things that Hubbard just discovered was that there needed to be a way to teach people how to study. Because when he was trying to teach people the materials that he had put together, people were running into trouble. So children have special courses called How to Use a Dictionary, Learning How to Learn, Grammar and Communication, which clears up lots of misunderstoods on adverbs, adjectives, nouns, pronouns, etc. And those courses are all designed to leave someone more capable of studying the written word. And so children can take those courses. There are also adult courses. We call it the Student Hat, which teaches adults all of the things about how to study. And also children can receive auditing too. Younger children can receive assists and that type of thing, but they're not quite up to, a child has to be old enough to where they can actually self-evaluate. Does that make sense? So teenagers are perfectly capable of looking at things that they remember and determining whether that was something that was beneficial to them or not beneficial to them. But smaller children are not really up to doing that yet. So when a child starts receiving auditing is up to that child, and when they're at a point where they can actually express themselves well.
The next question is from Becky. How do you grow or recruit?
As far as membership?
I believe that's what you're asking, right,
Okay.
Becky?
Okay.
Yes.
Okay, good. So actually people get into Scientology many different ways. I was actually referred to the church by what at the time was just my friend. He eventually, many years later, became my husband, but I was having trouble. I was, a single parent with 2 children, and I was struggling, to say the least. And so he actually referred me to the church to take a course called The Ups and Downs in Life, which he thought would help me. And he was right, it did. And then I took other courses and, and that's how I became a Scientologist. Some people, a lot of people actually, read the book Dianetics and then find a church because they're looking for something to handle that. And so that may bring them into the church. There's also Scientology TV now, where people find that, they find out more information, then they come into the church to get more information. Our website, there's Scientology websites that you can go onto and find out more. You can take personality tests. So one of the tools that we use initially when somebody comes in, the biggest question people ask once they've decided they're interested in Scientology is, what do I do? And so we use a personality test, which they take, it's their own answers, that we can then go over with them to see if there are areas in their life where they're having difficulty, and then we can recommend a life improvement course that covers that particular area that would then help them do better. And so that's the standard path.
Okay, the reason I asked that question is because this happened to me like about 30 or more years ago. I was walking down the street in Detroit, Michigan. And I'm not kidding you, somebody approached me. I was scared out of my wits because I had heard things about Scientology, you know, and they just like asked me if I would come into this building, and I said no. Yeah, so do they still do
So
things?
we do. Yeah, we do have our new public staff, the people that deal with new public and that help new public get started. Yes, they do go pass out information, which typically usually right near the church, where people know that the church is there, etc. And they ask people if they would like to come in, etc. If they don't have somebody that they're working with, lots of times they will go out and do that to introduce Scientology. But that is not the most common way that people make it into the church.
I don't think it would be.
Becky. Okay, the next question is from Keith. How does Scientology fund its activities? Is there tithing, assessments, book sales, etc.?
Okay. So yes, we don't have tithes, but we do pay for all the services that we receive. So monetary values have been established to cover the materials, and then for the actual service of delivering a course or delivering auditing services. And so we pay those for whatever we're doing, and that is what funds the church and the staff and all those other things. The other group that I was talking about, though, the International Association of Scientologists, that money is pure donation money. So Scientologists donate money just to the International Association of Scientologists to be used not for maintaining buildings or anything like that, but specifically to be used to help with the campaigns or with volunteer minister activities. I think David's raising his hand.
Thank you. Bennett, I want to thank you for being in Kansas City and for your presence. Bannett's a regular attender of Eggs and Enlightenment and has been a real gift to those people, and I want to thank you for that. As you know, there's been a lot of information about Scientology which has not been complimentary. What can you say to us? What would you like to never hear again about Scientology that has really been vicious? And how can we be better allies with you? Not necessarily by becoming united with you and attending all of your services, but as people who also long to see people grow spiritually and who care deeply about the community. How can we be better allies to you, and what would you like never said about Scientology again?
Yeah. Well, honestly, I would love it if nothing was ever said about Scientology that wasn't true, because that is the biggest thing. It doesn't matter what they say. They're just, some of them are so outlandish and they're just have no truthful basis. So I just wish people would just stop trying to make up things that they think they know. Stop forwarding tabloid stuff. Unfortunately, or fortunately, I don't know. I guess it depends on how you look at it. We have some celebrities in Scientology. And why it matters that Scientology has celebrities, because I'm pretty sure every religion has some celebrities that are of that religion. They just love to talk about the celebrities that are Scientologists. So I could care less to hear about any of that too. As far as being an ally, honestly, I have made so many allies that are great people, and it's just because we work together. And that's all I ever ask, is to just accept us for who we are and allow us to help you, work with us on things that benefit our community. You don't have to come into our church all the time. I encourage all of the allies that I've made to at least make one trip to our church so that you can see where I spend time, what I'm doing, and so that you can get any questions that you have answered. Because this is also something that I would ask of my allies, is to never forward things that you don't know to be true. Always ask if you have a question, and tell other people that they should go find out the truth and not believe something that they just heard or read in a tabloid. But so far, it's been working great. I mean, I've made so many new friends from so many different religions and backgrounds. I know that COVID is here, but I swear this has been the most uplifting time of my life to be able to work with all the different people from the different churches. So it's the upside of COVID, I guess.
Go ahead, Barry.
Barry?
Yeah, sorry I'm joining late. You might have covered this. Are there particular symbols or religious objects that are related to Scientology?
Well, the e-meter, I guess you didn't get to see that if you came on late, but
But I'll look for it at one of your websites, yes.
yes. So the e-meter is the artifact that he created so that we could help people locate the things that they need to handle when they're receiving auditing services. And then as far as sacred objects, we don't really have any sacred objects. And I also want to point out that we don't worship Hubbard. I forgot to mention that at the very beginning. We see him as a friend and as a humanitarian. And so we lots of times will applaud him when we've had success with something or something good has happened because of the application of the technology he left us. But that's the extent of that.
Barry, I was going to say that this was recorded and it's on Facebook, so you can go back and look at her PowerPoint if you want to do that. The next question is from Deborah. Do you have a sacred text like the Bible for Scientology?
Well, we consider all of our text valuable. I don't know about sacred, but definitely valuable because he wrote a path for all of us to follow. He wrote down what we needed to do, how in the auditing, how you help people, get beyond their past experiences so that they're not the sum of their past experience, but they can rise above and beyond that. So we don't consider them sacred, but we consider them extremely important and valuable, and we protect them. And everything has been secured. Copies of everything have been secured so that we will have them for forever.
The next question is from Susan. Do auditors receive an income from their auditing activities, or are they volunteer activities?
They can be both. So a person can come and train as an auditor, and they can go out and audit whomever they want free of charge. If they're a staff member at the church, then yes, they get paid like any other staff member. And staff pay is, of course, based on, whatever the church is delivering in services, and then it goes through calculations and people get paid accordingly. But yeah, you can train to be an auditor, and you can audit whomever you want. Lots of people train to become auditors so that they can audit their family and friends free of charge.
Susan, you have another question? Do you want me to keep reading these, or you want to ask?
Okay, I'll read that one. It seems like your spiritual practice seems like it would be really good for people with PTSD. And I wonder if you have very many people in the church that have actually come to you with this kind of a situation.
Well, so auditing is a personal thing. So I don't always know everybody's story, but I do know that there are, prior military people that have come into Scientology, and my guess is they handled stuff like that. Again, it's priest-penitent privilege, so we don't always know everybody's story. We don't know what kind of things happened to them and what they've gotten through. But yes, I can tell you that when he was researching to write the book Dianetics, he started his research in a military hospital because he was in the service and he was injured. And so he was there as a patient. And it's one of the things that helped him develop auditing techniques, because he was using it on himself and the other patients in the military hospital to help them heal better.
Interesting. Thank you.
Mhm.
Another question from Keith. How many Scientologists are there around the world?
I knew I should have watched that video. So I honestly can't answer that, but I would imagine hundreds of thousands. There's at least one, church in every, well, more than one church on every continent. They're just all over the place around the globe. The materials have been translated in some 27 different languages. We just opened last year? Yeah, last year, around February, I believe. We opened a new advanced organization in Africa, and there was a huge celebration, and Scientology was expanding in Africa. So I honestly don't know the true number, but I guarantee that it's on the Scientology website if you want to go check it out.
Wikipedia says you have 15 million as of 2004.
Oh, there you go. Okay.
Thank you, Wikipedia. I actually had a question. So you mentioned earlier that you could be a Scientologist and also belong to another religion. So does that mean that Scientology does not have their own sort of dogma or theology that dictates views on a higher power or a deity or an afterlife? I was wondering if you could explain a little more about that.
Yeah, that's correct. So it's part of our search for our truth. So it needs to be there, it needs to exist, but Scientology doesn't define that for you. You, in doing Scientology services and expanding your own spiritual awareness, it is to lead you towards a better relationship with either, like I said, the ultimate reality or with your God, etc. I know when I began in Scientology, I had been raised basically Baptist. I'd also gone to a Methodist church for a little while, tried Catholic a little bit, but whatever. But I was baptized Baptist. Most of my upbringing was Baptist. So for me, I immediately started feeling a much more deep connection with God than I ever did before in my early experiences, because although as a child I knew that I had a soul and I knew that something happened after death and that my soul went on, I don't think that I had the kind of understanding that I got through Scientology. And I felt like becoming more spiritually aware made me understand even God more. Does that make sense? I hope that helps.
So do you, Becky, go ahead.
You go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to ask if you still hold some of those Baptist worldview in your.
Well, the only thing I could say that I totally hold on to is just my belief in a God. Okay, and I'm going to say it like that because I'm not sure if that God is the one defined, in anybody's particular text. I don't really know yet. I haven't found that answer for myself. But I was always the kid questioning the Sunday school teachers. Okay, so this is not to be surprised that that is the one thing that I held on to and kind of didn't give in to all of the, necessarily text within the Bible or the, communion or any of that kind of stuff. I did not hold on to those things because they were never what really attracted me in religion, but others do. some others, those things are important to them and they carry them on. So it really is totally up to you in Scientology how you express yourself on the 8th dynamic.
Becky, did you still have something? Yep.
Yeah. I heard this. Now I don't know if this is true, but I've
It's
heard that
okay.
it is difficult to leave the church. Is that correct?
Well, I've honestly never tried to leave, but I have known people who have left the church. I think that there are people who make it hard by creating problems that the church then has to deal with. But to just leave the church, no, I don't think that it's hard at all. You just don't come back.
Okay.
Barry?
I heard you say that there are problems with what some celebrities have said about Scientology. Are there any celebrities or well-known people that have actually represented Scientology well, in your view?
Oh, so I wasn't necessarily saying that they said bad things. I was saying that the tabloids love to say bad things about them and or their relationships and or that thing, not that they personally said anything bad. I don't follow celebrities, so don't really know. But I do know that I have met Stanley Clark, and I think he's an exceptional representative of the faith. I have also, heard a little bit about and one time got to meet Kirstie Alley, and I think she's an amazing individual. Other than that, haven't been close enough to any of them, so I would only have the same kind of data that you do, which I tend to ignore.
Okay.
Yes, I don't know if you guys know about this, but there was early on in the shutdowns, a group of Scientologists, all from their own homes, put together a musical collaboration called Spread a Smile. And it's on YouTube if you want to search for Spread a Smile. And they're amazing people. And the whole point of the song was to get people to not be so upset. And instead of spreading the virus, to spread a smile to people.
While you wear a mask.
Yeah. Behind the mask.
This is when we were all on lockdown, so they were in their own homes. Any other questions?
Anyone else have any other questions?
I'll ask another one, Eva. That's okay.
Yeah, go for it,
Yeah.
Keith.
Okay. Is there a process within Scientology to excommunicate or to discipline people who you feel that may be espousing Scientology but aren't doing it appropriately, and that how do you get them out of there?
Oh, okay. So, well, I told you that we have ethics, an ethics section. We have ethics officers. So if somebody is doing something that we would call off policy, meaning that they're saying things that aren't true or anything like that, then yes, there's a whole system of Scientology ethics and justice. And they would first go to an ethics officer to try to figure out, is it something that they just honestly misunderstood? We would try to get to the root of what caused it and try to handle that. Now, if it was somebody actually being malicious and stuff like that, yes, I mean, we can't do anything with them in society, but yes, we can refuse them to be a member of the church. We can refuse them services in the church if they're really trying to do that. It's rare. I have never known someone that has happened to, but it can be done. Like I said, we have a whole system. The book is called Introduction to Scientology Ethics. Anybody can buy the book, and it talks about how we handle ethics and justice matters within the church. Hi.
Thank you.
Oh, you decided to join us on camera.
Well, I just wanted to say thank you.
Thanks so much,
Yeah,
Keith.
no, it was a good question. It was a good question. We do take ethics very seriously because we do believe that spiritually, if you are not living ethically, it harms you as a spiritual being, and it holds you back and almost blinds you. It makes it hard for you to see truth if you're doing things which are unethical, whether it's unethical to yourself or to others. Like, it basically causes you difficulties. So we don't want people to receive auditing services if they're currently in the middle of ethics situations, because the auditing would not be as valuable, because there are places where they're not willing to look because they know they're doing bad. Does that make sense? So we always try to clean up ethics first and make sure that the person is doing their best to be ethical so that they can get the benefits from what they're learning and from their auditing.
So I know that we should probably be at the point where we're wrapping up, but I did have one more question.
No, you're fine.
So you had a slide with like the triangle sort of diagrams, and there was sorry, what was it called?
I said the two triangles.
Yes, yes. So there was one that was about control and how to regain control through responsibility, and I can't remember what the other point.
Knowledge.
What was that?
Knowledge.
Knowledge, right. So I was wondering if in Scientology, is there a belief that you can control everything in your life? You know, coming from a Buddhist worldview, I would say we can't control anything, right? So I'm just curious what the, I'm just curious about the theology. I get, you know, that's, I don't know that much about Scientology, so I'm just interested.
No, that's totally good. So as far as I know, we cannot control everything, but there are things in our immediate environment which we can control. And as we grow, we should be more capable of controlling in a broader sphere. Okay. Now, does that mean that we control absolutely everything? No, but by utilizing responsibility, taking responsibility for a broader zone, like for example, your fourth dynamic and wanting to do something to help mankind, and deciding to do that is taking more responsibility. Then learning how you might go about doing that would be utilizing the knowledge. And as you do both of those things, your ability to control what you want to control in that area is going to rise. It doesn't mean that you can just like decide that you're just going to control the entire fate of the world, because the amount of knowledge you would probably need to do that, to acquire that amount of control, would probably be more than you could do. So no, it's about how we can handle what's the here and now, like what's in front of us in our dynamics. How can we, you know, be more knowledgeable? How can we control more? How can we take more responsibility? Because also I used control as the example, but maybe it's responsibility that, you know, you're having trouble taking responsibility for some situation. So if you can increase your knowledge of that and find out more about it, etc., that again is going to raise your ability to control your own self, to be able to take more responsibility. So it can go around in whichever way, but any point that you increase will increase the others. And so it's just a tool that we use so that we can handle things better.
So it's more about correct function and relationship in terms of how you're responding to your situation.
Yeah, for whatever that is, whether it's you personally handling a personal issue or handling a family situation, it can apply to that. Same with the ARC triangle. You can also, we call it being in ARC, which means that the triangle is complete and we have an affinity for the person, we're communicating with the person, and we share a reality. We call that being in ARC. Okay, well, you can be in ARC with yourself, or you can be out of ARC for yourself, meaning that one of the points on your triangle is broken for you. Maybe you don't like yourself as much as you would like to like yourself. Okay, and so the ARC triangle can help direct you how you can develop more about, you know, love for yourself. You can, again, increase your reality of yourself by, again, through auditing and stuff, you find out who you really are. and maybe that makes you like yourself better. Or you can spend more time really getting in communication with yourself to find out what it is you really want and like, and etc. So that's how we use those triangles in pretty much everything that we do.
Thank you.
I had one more question, Burnett. Just having come through an election season, do Scientologists have a view about getting involved in electoral politics, or are there Scientologists who have run themselves for public office? Do you know?
I would imagine surely somewhere there's some Scientologists that have run for office. I don't know of anybody here in our area that has done that. It's certainly not prohibited. You absolutely could do it. I think that at least most of the Scientologists I know, they're more concerned with other things than dealing with, you know, what they would have to deal with to be involved in politics. They're more concerned with, you know, being more spiritual and doing things for mankind that actually will benefit them. Not that politicians can't do that, but you know, it's a system. So in Scientology, it is our responsibility to mankind and to our country and to our city that we be active as far as making sure that we understand issues and that we do vote and exercise our rights. We do, though, as a church, remain apolitical. Like, we don't take stands because we have way too many, a broad range of membership. There's no way that the church would ever take a position and say, you must be this or you must support this. But there are codes of conduct for Scientologists. So like, we are expected to support governments that are supposed to be for and of the people, you know, that type of thing, but they're broad. They're not like support this candidate or support this party, but we should be looking out for, you know, everyone around us and supporting things that would be of the most benefit to society.
Thank you.
Yeah.
All right, are there any last questions or comments before we wrap up?
Any prohibitions like no drinking, no smoking, no dancing?
Okay. So it's not there. Okay. There are prohibitions if you're going to be going on course or auditing. So you cannot consume alcohol or take pain medications prior to, I think it's 48 hours before you're going to be getting auditing. Okay, and that's because all of those things can dull the mind and the senses, and you don't want that interference when you're trying to handle your own memories. You want to be sharp. You don't want to be groggy. And same with studying. They can also inhibit your ability to study well if you have ill effects from those things in your system when you're trying to actually study material. So those are rules that we agree to follow. Now, some Scientologists choose not to. Like, I don't drink. Now, that doesn't mean that on my daughter's 21st birthday, I had a drink with her, which I did. But as a general rule, I just don't have a desire for alcohol. I don't like what alcohol does to me, you know, so I just choose not to drink. But Scientologists can drink, but we're definitely encouraged not to drink to the point of losing control. So you wouldn't, you know, indefinitely being like an alcoholic would need to be handled, because there would be some reason spiritually that's causing you to feel the need to use a substance to get through a day. Does that make sense? And so part of the handling for someone who comes in because they're having a problem drinking or whatever, you know, would be both ethics to get them to understand why this is bad for their body, and also auditing and training to find what it is that's causing that and help them deal with that. And then we also have the purification rundown, which we all do, but some people do it sooner than others if they have large drug histories or alcohol histories or something like that, where there's enough of those materials in their fatty tissues that it could be causing them difficulties, then they would be recommended to do the purification rundown sooner. And that is a long regimen. You have to go every single day for a certain amount of hours every day. It takes weeks to do, but basically you're sweating in a sauna and you're taking vitamins and supplements to replace the stuff that you're sweating out. And the whole point of it is to get that stuff out of the fatty tissues of your body so that you don't have residual effects from those things. So yeah.
So is that sort of like a detox process?
Yeah, basically. Yep.
Any other last questions or comments? No?
Thank you guys for all of your questions. I enjoyed answering them. I really enjoy helping people understand us, and I love to go to other people's and find out more about their faith so that I can understand them better. So I love this whole series. It's great.
Yeah, thank you so much for your time, and to everyone for participating and for all of your great questions. This was a really good discussion. So thank you so much, Bennett. And so on behalf of the Interfaith Center and the Interfaith Council and Greater Kansas City, just have a great night, and we hope you will continue to join us for more events in this series. Okay, so good night, everyone.
Bye, everybody.
Right.
Night.